Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mike Colleen at MikeColleen.com. Alright, people, so today we're going to talk about narcissists. Okay, so what I thought I would do today, just because something actually happened, and I also think it's going to be a very good idea so you can see it from the bird's eye view or from my perspective, or how do you deal with it in real life? Because, people, what you hear a lot is like, okay, here's a tactic a narcissist does, but you're like, well, how do I deal with it? And it's like they might even tell you, like, here's how you deal with it, go cold fish or whatever, go cold stone or cold or rock stone or whatever it's called. But you're like, what do you mean? Like, give me an example. So I've been going through something recently, much easier, much better. I figured it out super fast. And I thought I'd give you kind of a blow-by-blow scene, or however you explain that. Alright, so basically here's where I'm at. I'm getting back into life, and I've been getting back into life for a while. So I started going back to some of my old haunts, like mostly coffee shops, because I wrote my book, Crack the Female Code. That's a 500 plus page book, okay? And I wrote 4 other books and did my manual, etc. So for years I was going to coffee shops and writing. So there's a place nearby. It's about a city away. So I'm trying to get out. I'm trying to go out to where I used to go to different places. I'd love to go to San Francisco, but it's just not what it used to be. And right now, I don't think it's a good time to go there. Although there's a Thai restaurant in one of the bad areas, but they've actually been fixing it up. But because of what's been happening the last 2 years, it's kind of, 'cause there's a lot of money going in there. Like a lot of these very wealthy, what do you call them? I call them AI guys now, but IT guys or whatever they're called. There's a lot of money going in it's called the Tenderloin, which used to be one of the worst areas, and I heard it's gotten worse. But there's a Thai restaurant there that I just absolutely love. So I might wait a couple more months and maybe venture out to the city, because I have not been in it. I've gone through the city, I've gone around the city, but I have not spent any time in San Francisco for 2.5, 3 years. It's just not cool. Alright, so I basically went to one of my old haunts, one of the coffee shops I used to go to. I've been going there, I think about 2 weeks now, something like that, and I bumped into an old acquaintance. I wouldn't say friend. It's definitely someone I knew, but it's someone I knew as a part of a group of people who I was kind of chatting with, actually quite a bit, but I never really joined the group. There's something that kind of bugged me. Alright, hell, I'll just start there. I'll just throw it out there. So there's a group of people, seemingly nice people. I would say, fairly nice people and stuff. But everyone, it was a Christian group. It really wasn't like a Christian group, but it was. It was and it wasn't. Like they all kind of went to this weird, I guess apparently there's this pastor who I didn't like. Right off the bat, this guy, one of the main leaders of the group introduced me to this guy. And we were all sitting down at the coffee shop, and he just goes, well, you're a sinner, you're going to hell, and don't you think this, and don't you think that, and all this just negative languaging. And I'm looking at him like, who in the, like, this guy's younger than me by about 10 years. And I'm like, this guy knows nothing about me. And I'm like, wow, like, that's a good way to get your teeth knocked out. So as he starts doing the shame game, the guilt game, now, as I look back now, like that person is the furthest thing from God. That's what I would call a demonic narcissist. Okay, I would now. Back then, I didn't really. I was like, yeah, I'm never gonna talk to this guy again. And so he was trying to guilt me into joining his group. Now, I was kind of shocked because now here he is. He's a self-appointed pastor. He may have went to Bible school. I don't know. I don't care. But he's self-appointed, started his own little group, and they rent some kind of space out somewhere once a week, and not even all of them go. I think there's like a total of 10 of them, or was. This whole thing broke up 2-3 years ago. He even moved out of the area, but it was just like, what in the hell? And so I'm kind of looking at all these other people, and like, really, you're introducing me to this guy? Like, wow. So the guy that was sitting with us that introduced me to this guy, when this guy started going into the guilt stuff and the blame shame game, I looked at him like, are you going to correct this guy, or am I going to have to do it myself? And he gets up and walks away, and I'm like, oh, great. Yeah, so you don't got my back. Awesome. So I had known this group of friends, not my friends, but a group that was being friendly, and I think they're trying to pull me into their group. And they were all nice and fairly, but the one thing I remember is everyone talked behind everyone's back, and that's so I was like, something just. And I see it now, whereas back then I didn't know what it was, but I was like, I don't feel like I just felt like it was this judgmental group of people. Well, you know, so as I look back now, I literally I remember at the very end, I just pulled away from this group. Like there was something cultish about these people, and they may have been a group of narcissists. So I go back and I'm just checking this place out, and it's totally different. Like apparently all these people moved away, like 3 or 4 of the main people of the group. And I bump into one of them who, for the most part, I didn't interact too much and never seemed to have a problem with him. He's always seemed to be, cool. Now we just ended up. I think he even bought me a hot chocolate. He got me something. It might have been tea. I don't remember what it was. And I was like, yeah, sure, man, go ahead, man. And so we ended up talking for about an hour, and we laughed and had a good time and stuff. And some other person joined us, I think. Didn't think much of it, and then I think I bumped into him again. He's like, "Hey, man, give me your number." I'm like, "What do you mean? Don't you have my number?" I go, "Dude, because I already gave it to him like twice at this point, and I mean from years ago, like 2+ years ago before the lockdowns." Now, here's the reason why I point this out is because there was another narcissist who kept saying, "Oh, give me your number." I'm like, "Dude, this is like the 3rd time." "Oh, I lost it." I'm like, "Again?" All right, dude. So if someone does that, I would literally just be like, take that as a red flag of screw this person. All right, so I joined this guy again, or we showed up as similar. He showed up 30 minutes later. I was into reading and doing some stuff. And we started another conversation, and it was kind of bouncy. I just noticed everything ping-ponged. It was all over the place. I'm like, whoa, this dude is freaking scattered. That's a red flag, people. Scattered conversation where it constantly shifts and changes and nothing gets complete. So at this point, I'm like, nah, it's just who he is, and that's only one red flag. So, no big deal, no worries. And so he got my number, and I remember he called me up. It was always at nighttime, like at 9:30 or 10. And one of the things I noticed, he's like, well, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you say I am? And he's talking about looks-wise. I'm like, I don't know, dude. And because I didn't want to say it because it's not very good. And so the one thing I noticed in I don't know if it was that conversation or the next one, but it was just this constant, like, okay, here's the technique. All right, before I get to the technique, number 1, the first real flag was just feeling really creepy about this group. Like I literally was like, it's like they're acting like a cult. Okay, I don't mean some like real cult where they do drugs and do that. There's some cults where everybody sleeps with everyone. I don't mean like that. Hopefully it's not like that. I don't know. But it was just kind of like they were trying to suck me into this group, and I was like, but it wasn't even that. But it was just another red flag. Like everybody was talking shit about everyone. I mean, it was just like you couldn't go in there one day with, oh well, so and so this and so that. Right there is when you're like, yeah, I'm out of this group. Okay. So red flag number 2 is scattered conversation, where they're just ping-ponging and you get exhausted, and they're changing the conversation rapidly. They're talking fast. Talking fast can definitely be a red flag. It doesn't necessarily mean, though. Here's another red flag, and in my opinion, I could be wrong, but it's when a guy is I just think when men do this, this is just not normal in my opinion. But when a guy is constantly asking you, even saying on a scale of 1 to 10, what are my looks? And I'm like, Jesus, dude, like he did this every conversation, more than once in each conversation. Now this is going back over the last 10, I think it was 10 days or 14 days ago, I bumped into him for the first time in years. And this is like the 3rd or 4th time we're talking on the phone. I'm like, and I go, dude, honestly, I don't judge dudes on a scale of 10. I just think that's weird. And by the way, that did give me flashbacks to my last narcissist, because he did that shit and wanted, I'm about everything. It wasn't just one thing. It was odd. What about this? What about that? I'm like, oh my God. All right, so here's 2 tactics that you can really catch pretty damn fast, because it's really obvious. Number one is when they ask you a question, you start to answer and they just interrupt, and then they ask you another question. They interrupt you, and they ask another question, and they interrupt you. That right there is beyond a shadow of a doubt. That is a narcissist #1 tool to fractionate your mind, to confuse you. It fractionates your thoughts, so you have all these separate thoughts open. Now, I've made a longer video on this subject, so here's essentially what it does. They open up a thought and they interrupt it on purpose. And then they open up another thought. Now, how they're doing it, they're asking you a question, so you start to think about something. And what happens is your mind goes into this direction and is up here thinking, and they interrupt it and they ask another one. Now, here's what happens. Now you have two separate thoughts open at the same time because you didn't complete either one. So then as you answer the second one, they interrupt you again, and now you've got 3 conversations going, and then 4, and then 5. They think this is a freaking blast. They think it's hilarious because you end up feeling exhausted and drained and confused, and that is what the tactic is designed to do. One of the #1 overall goals of narcissism is for them to take over your brain, to literally hijack your brain. The technique of asking you a question, interrupting you, ask you a question, interrupt, and another one is what they do. Okay, so here's what happens. So what happens is this leads you in the direction of doubt because you start getting really confused. So this technique is purposely designed to confuse you. Then #2, then they start gaslighting you. Well, what is gaslighting you? Gaslighting is real simple. Let's say it could be you put your keys and your glasses up on the counter when you walk in, because that's where you put them every day, and you've been doing it for 5 years. Well, they come along and they take your keys and your glasses and they put them in the bedroom on the dresser. So you're looking all over the place, all over, and you're like, where the hell are my keys? And you're like, I don't know, man. And you find them in the bedroom on the dresser, and you're like, well, that's weird. And like, hey, did you put them in there? Like, no, I didn't touch them. That's gaslighting, because it makes you start to doubt yourself. Another form of gaslighting is they'll say like, oh, I'm totally for this presidential person. I'm going to vote for them, and they're totally pro this, pro that. And then about a week or a month later, or it could be a day later, or could be 5 minutes later, is they'll then say, oh, I'm totally for the other party. And you're like, wait, just last week you said you were going to vote for so-and-so, and you gave me all the reasons. No, not me. I never said that. That's gaslighting. They're doing it to put doubt in your mind. So #1, what they do is they confuse the hell out of you with doing what's called pattern interrupts, and okay, here's the technique of asking questions and interrupting. It fractionates your mind. And what it does is it forces you into your forehead into a very tight, small area, and you get stuck and you spin, and they think it's freaking hilarious. And then they start the gaslighting and the lying, so you start to doubt yourself. So those two things put together allows them to take over your brain. So now suddenly they're telling you, and they'll even say, are you sure? I think you forgot. And they'll tell you that you forgot, and then they'll say, and so the ultimate goal is to get you to doubt yourself, so you look to them like, oh, well, what should I think? What should I do? How should I dress? And they'll say, well, you shouldn't get your hair cut like. So eventually, they get to a point where they have 100% control. They say, don't get your hair cut like this. Get your hair cut like that. Don't get your hair cut like that. Get it like this. Don't wear those. You shouldn't even buy those. Buy these instead. And now they've completely hijacked your brain, and they tell you what to do, what to wear, how to walk, how to talk, what to eat, when to eat, etc. So here's another thing this person did to me. Okay, so #1, they're asking me questions and they're interrupting, and I'm just like, wow, like this is like, I was already, boom. I mean, this was like red flag #2 or 3 or 4. But this one, when it came, okay, so here's what I did. I said, hey man, you've really got to stop doing that. If you ask me a question, let me finish. And so he interrupted me. I go, dude, why do you ask me a question you don't want to hear the answer? He goes, what? And they act stupid. It's a fucking act, I'm telling you. Now, he knows I'm a dating relationship coach, so he was asking me for advice on well, what do you think about this? And so when I started to answer here, he would go, no, I don't think that. What I think is blah, blah, blah. And so here's another thing they do. When they ask you questions and interrupt you, they're going to start inserting their beliefs. They're trying to get your mind to take on what their values are, what their beliefs are, what the way they think, or what they want you to think. So they're trying to insert that into you. All right, so another tactic, which is almost the exact same. is, let's say you're talking about a subject, okay? Whether you're answering a question or you're just talking about a subject, they'll interrupt you. And what they do is they grab a piece of what you're talking about and they'll take it in a completely different direction. All right, so here's a good way to say this. So they ask me a question, I start to answer it, and then they grab something that had nothing to do with the answer. Like, oh, I bought a hot chocolate like that once in San Francisco, blah blah blah. And it's like, and they go, and I met this person. What they said, and boom, now they're going off in another story that has absolutely nothing to do with the question or the answer that they asked you. Again, all of this is done purposely to fractionate your mind so you get confused and you have all these different stories open. So think about it. Here's what they're doing. They're open, whether they're doing it or they're asking you a question. So if they ask you a question, you begin to start an answer. So you just opened up a storyline. They interrupt, ask another question, you open another one, they interrupt, another one, and then what they can do, and then they can grab something and go in another direction. So boom, now there's 4 or 5 storylines open, and then from there they can do another one, and they'll keep going the more they have open. Now, a lot of you will sit there, I just feel so drained and so exhausted. It's because your mind is spinning and spinning in all these different storylines because none of them have been complete. So your unconscious mind is trying to complete all of them in your mind, and you're trying to remember them so you can go back to them to complete them in the conversation. If somebody does any of these tactics to you or any of these red flags, immediately get up, walk away, don't even say goodbye, because they go, oh, what's going on? And then they're just going to start another storyline, going to start another argument, which is another storyline. So now you can see it from the narcissist perspective. The strategy isn't necessarily arguing or doing this technique or that. The overall strategy is to get a ton of storylines open so your brain gets overwhelmed, exhausted, and confused. That is what the real goal is to open up a bunch of different storylines. So this is what I mean when I say someone who's ping-ponging all over the place, and they're all over the place, changing conversations, asking questions, interrupting, changing the conversation. If you bump into someone like this, here's the deal. They're going to play the poor puppy, and I'm just a little puppy, and I'm innocent, and here's another huge red flag. If you feel sorry for them, and that's why you don't call them on their shit or just get up and walk away, they purposely played the poor world, the poor puppy me, the poor victim me, and they got you to feel sorry for them. That is a huge part of this tactical strategy. They have to get you to feel sorry for them so you wouldn't think in a million years that they are absolutely doing all of this on purpose. So now things start to get fun for us because now we can see the strategy behind the strategy. It's the real core pattern of just constantly opening up all these different storylines using the tactic of feeling sorry for them, because this is what continues to keep you around and not being rude and say, hey, you know what, I'm not playing these games because, well, I feel sorry for them because, they're just dumb. Oh, that's another one. Oh, that's another one. They play dumb. Trust me, they're not dumb. They know exactly what they're doing. And if you fall for it, they're going to be like, this person's an idiot, and they're going to take advantage of it, and they're going to laugh their ass off. All right, so let's put it this way. Let's say worst case scenario, as in maybe they're not a narcissist, and that's okay. Let's say they're not a narcissist. Okay, let's say this is worst case, or maybe this would be best case scenario. So let's say they're not a narcissist, but I'm telling you, if they do everything that I just said back there, they are, hands down, no questions asked. So let's just play it the other way. Let's say they're not a narcissist and they're just an idiot. So here's the deal. If they're an adult and they're still doing this shit and they haven't learned to respect someone enough to ask a question and then shut up and listen, get up and walk away. That's on them. They need to learn. They need to figure shit out. So I was onto this guy. It was the first night he began that question interruptus tactic, and then he started blending in the grab something in what I said and go into another direction, right? I knew right then and there, oh, this guy, he knows exactly what he's doing. So at this point, I'm like, okay, I'll just set him up. So I said, hey man, if you ask me a question, let me finish it. You keep interrupting me and I'm getting really sick and tired of it. So I made it really clear I'm onto this game and you need to let me finish. How long do you think he went before he interrupted me again? Not even 30 seconds. And that was the longest he let me speak, by the way, without interrupting me. So here's what I started to do in the next two conversations. I just started to count. When he would ask me a question, I would count how many words came out of my mouth before he would either interrupt or change the conversation. And on average, it was 5 to 7. So at this point, I just shut up and let him talk and talk and talk and talk. And then he finally got to the point. He's like, "Oh, am I talking too much?" No, keep going. He was, no, it's okay. Because he realized, like, man, this guy's on to me. Like, yep, I sure am, buddy. And so when he basically said, "Oh, okay, well, I'm pretty much done," or, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt," like, I was like, you know what, dude? If you're just going to keep interrupting me, don't even ask me questions. Now, I'm doing this on purpose because it's shoving it in his face, and he's going, "Oh, shit." Because it's like, well, fuck, I can't do that. I can't play this game anymore. So with me being a communication coach, and I also teach social behavior, body language, and all that, social skills, I should say, and social behavior, I had said, and he knows this about me, I said, hey man, I tell you what, why don't we work on this? Because I can't have conversations with people that ping pong all over the place, change the conversation, go in a different direction, interrupt us. I go, why don't I just teach you a couple of skills in communication? And so he begrudgingly listened and just kept interrupting, and he didn't want to. And then what happened is the next time we talked, he texted, hey man, I don't want to go over any lessons anymore. And I'm thinking, yeah, and I don't want to talk to you anymore. So essentially what I did, I basically just shoved it in his face and said, hey man, no, I don't enjoy conversations like this. I don't like conversating like this. We're ping pong. I go, we're getting nothing done. So now he calls me the fourth time, okay? Now there's something else to this, but I don't think I'm going to put it in this. I'm going to make another video. So he calls me a fourth time. Now I've already kind of started to corner him and just be like, no, dude, I don't play these games. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. So he's kind of running out of options. So now he goes into the next phase. So the next phase was, he had already told me he was conservative, he believed this, he believed that, blah, 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 multiple times. And here we are about 8 days into it, maybe a little bit more actually. And now he's slowly switching to the other side, saying, oh, well, I don't believe that, I believe this. And I'm just like, really, dude? Because you said this, the opposite, just about 4 days ago, and you said it again 5 days ago and 6 days ago. You've said, well, no. And see, here's the thing, though. They try to get you to feel sorry for them, because if you feel sorry for them, you won't be gruff. You won't call them on their shit. You won't get to the point and say, hey man, here's what you've been saying to me for the last 5, 6, 7 days. Now you're saying the opposite. Well, you got to see from this perspective. And I said, no, I don't have to see it from that perspective. I have to see it from the perspective that you said it. You said A, B, C, and D. Now you're saying the opposite, X, Y, and Z. So if you haven't figured it out, that's gaslighting, where they say they believe this politically, and then it could be a month later, a week later, but then so they later on say, well, I don't believe that. They won't say I don't believe. They'll say, oh, I believe this, which is the total opposite of what they said before. This is all gaslighting. Now here's the deal. You'll meet this guy and think this is like the sweetest, innocent guy in the world. No, he's not. He knew exactly what he was doing. Like, look, here's one thing. If you're feeling sorry for someone, that's fine. But if then on top of it, they're speaking fast, they're asking questions and then interrupting you and then telling you what the answer is, and they do it again and again, and then they change the conversation, they ping pong, and then they do the whole like changing what their beliefs is, trust me, they are a professional. They know exactly what they're doing. If they got you to feel sorry for them, you should congratulate them, because they're actually doing a really, really good job of bamboozling you. So let's look at best case scenario. Let's say he was just spun out of his mind. He was a confused person, just ping-ponged all over the place, never meditated, drank too much coffee, and was just confused and confusing all the time. That's on them. They need to go to therapy. They need to go to coaching. They need to get off the caffeine. They need to meditate for years. They need to get their shit together. That's not your fault, and that's not your problem. And another thing, if they ask you a question and they constantly interrupt you and change the conversation, that's just rude. That's called lack of respect. So regardless of whether they're a narcissist or not, it does not matter. That's just disrespectful, and any adult knows that. It is not your job to fix people. It's their job to get their shit together. And here I was willing to teach him some of this stuff for absolutely free. He had no interest in that. And I'm sitting there going, I'm not going to have headache conversations with someone and hang out and spend time with someone that just confuses me and spins me in circles. So that's on him. He didn't want to learn a damn thing. Oh well, too bad. I'm going to wrap this up in the next video. Remember, click subscribe, click like, and go ahead and make a comment. I'll see you guys next video. Peace.